All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. On this Friday, just before the holiday weekend coming up here for the 4th of July. This is our sort of last podcast here before we head into the summer. And I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Chronicles. And today we have two guests with us, Eric Oliver from Green Forest Work and Tom Gilbert from the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. And this episode of the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Chronicles is being sponsored and contains a paid promotional ad for Green Forest Works, who will be introducing shortly here. Just to give everybody a little heads up on the podcast here, between AppCamera and WhipCamera, the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Chronicles is kind of a one-of-a-kind podcast that converses with passionate, community-minded partners and volunteers and different folks at different levels of government and agencies that work with us and our partners to highlight outstanding reclamation and community cleanup efforts, stream restoration, improvement projects and successes, and talks about sharing emergent ideas and technologies to both reclaim and remediate our legacy abandoned mine lands. I'm your host, Bobby Hughes, with the Eastern Pennsylvania Coalition for Abandoned Mine Reclamation as their executive director, and I'm joined here this afternoon by my co-host, Ann Damett, the watershed coordinator for Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby. And first and foremost, we also need to thank the Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds for underwriting the first 12 episodes of the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Chronicles podcast. I believe we're in our 12th episode now, so we've made it a full year. And we are hopeful that this live streaming format that we do of personal interviews and discussing timely topics related to abandoned mine reclamation engages our audiences on a whole new level. So we encourage anyone listening to go ahead and put their questions and comments into the comment section of wherever you're joining us from. And I'll turn it back over to Bobby to introduce our two guests for today.
Yeah, thanks. And I'd like to take the time to kind of welcome our two guests here, longtime friends and colleagues of ours. And it's kind of interesting with these two gentlemen here, personally, ties to some of their past working relationships and organizations that I've worked with from the very beginning. And as we find out where they've worked for in the past and where they're currently at, I have had some affiliation with both sort of levels of government and the nonprofit that got me my start early in my career. So it's really great to have both Eric and Tom on here. But I'll give a quick introduction and overview to Eric, and then I'll proceed to talk about Tom a little bit here before we get into some questions on the podcast. So give me a few minutes here to kind of go through their bio and resume and see how involved they really are in a lot of these efforts that we're going to talk about today on reforestation of abandoned mine lands and some other watershed type issues. So with Eric Oliver, he's a mine land reforestation specialist for Green Forest Work, and he's earned his bachelor's degree in earth science from Clarion University of Pennsylvania. He's got a post-baccalaureate certificate in GIS from Penn State University, and I know he's helped me out a lot on some GIS work over the years with some open GIS courses we both took together, so I really appreciate that. And his focus kind of he works on reforestation, thousands of acres of forests in Pennsylvania that have been lost to mining and are being restored to temperate forest ecology, and also to a native state that existed well before the mineral extraction and resource extraction took place, using an approach that I'm sure he'll talk about by the Appalachian Regional Reforestation Initiative called the Forest Reclamation Approach. And before working with Green Forest Works, Eric was a mineral resource program specialist for the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection's Bureau of Mining Programs, back in 2006 to 2023, and he bounced around a little bit from the Moshannon District Mining Office down to the central office in Harrisburg, and he came into Moshannon. Before that, there was a Hawk Run District Mining Office that lots of mine discharges being worked on right now that I think Eric's also involved with Klein Felter and some partners in the Moshannon Creek watershed. And he's been, pretty involved wears a lot of different hats like many of us. He's a certified Pennsylvania Master Naturalist, serves on their board of directors for the Little Juniata River Association. He's a coordinator for the Cavity Nester program at Canoe Creek State Park, which I believe there's a lot of bats that fly out of that location that I've seen over the years. And he's also active in the Juniata Valley Audubon Society, Pennsylvania Society of Ornithology, and the Pennsylvania Forestry Association as well, and a few other groups here, the American Society of Reclamation Sciences and the Society of Ecological Restoration. He currently lives in Tyrone, PA, and he's the caretaker for the Plummer's Hollow Private Nature Preserve owned by a nature author, Marcia Bonta, and her family. As we sort of switch over to Tom here, Tom sort of served as the president of the Pennsylvania Environmental Council since January of 2024. And for over the last 3 decades, Tom's led numerous nonprofit campaigns, coalitions, and organizations working to protect land, water, and resources throughout the eastern U.S. and Pennsylvania as well. Tom's career is pretty long and lustrous as well. He was the co-executive director of the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, where he co-led a lot of aspects and most of the organization's work. He previously served as the New Jersey Conservation's campaign director for energy, climate, and natural resources, leading a team that helped enact the landmark clean energy law and developed a new state energy master plan to achieve 100% clean energy and improve the state's solar incentives and site-in policies, something we could definitely use here in Pennsylvania as well. And Tom previously served as the Senior Conservation Finance Director with the Trust for Public Lands, where he helped to design and pass 18 successful county and local ballot measures in 7 states, generating over $270 million to keep finance funds together for parks and land conservation. He also chaired the New Jersey Keep It Green Coalition and led successful campaigns to pass a constitutional amendment and other measures generating more than $2 billion in funding for New Jersey's land, water, and historic preservation programs. Tom served as the director for the Eastern Forest Conservation for the Wilderness Society, where he directed regional-wide campaign efforts to increase federal funding for land conservation, and as executive director of the New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, Connecticut Highlands Coalition. He led successful campaigns to protect critical lands and waters in the Highlands region through federal and state legislation. Tom's a native of Pennsylvania and resides down in Bucks County with his wife and his 2 daughters. And in his spare time, he enjoys playing guitar and is an avid hiker, a biker, a paddler, and an angler. So with that, I mean, we've got 2 great gentlemen here with some really deep backgrounds in the environmental arena, and we're glad to have you.
Yeah, welcome, Eric and Tom. And wow, the bios, just reading through there's just so much that we could cover that it's going to be hard to get it all squeezed into an hour. But what we do like to do, we're very excited to learn about your organizations, your projects, and, the reason why we invited you on here today. But we first would like to start off our conversation by getting to know you guys both a little bit better on a personal level. Because we do feel that this is a community, the Abandoned Mine Reclamation community, and we just want to introduce you to everyone. So if you could each tell us a little bit, if you don't mind sharing, where'd you grow up? Where are you currently from? Tell us about maybe something about your family. Do you have any personal connection to mining, abandoned or active mining? And what is your connection to abandoned mine reclamation? And I guess we'll go ahead and start with Eric.
Thanks, Ann and Tom. That was a great introduction there. Thanks for the bios and everything. So, I've kind of been involved with this all my life. I grew up in the city, which is probably one of the hotbeds for mine reclamation, mining and mine reclamation in that area. My father worked in the coal industry and doing engineering and land acquisitions for coal companies. Then he broke off after the 1977 when they signed the SMACRA law. He broke off and started his mine reclamation business, which provided sustenance to our family and everything, and grew into a full-time job after he left the coal industry and worked specifically for them doing mine reclamation. So a lot of the techniques that we were used were, he was on the cutting edge to help design and work things through, because up to that point really there hadn't been a whole lot of mine reclamation formal mine reclamation. So so there was a lot. So it was neat, So that's kind of my personal connection to it. I worked through my high school years. I remember days of going out with my mother with a picnic basket in the evenings because he was working long hours, daylight to dark, and having dinner with him in the field and him jumping right back on the tractor or the hydro seeder and going to work, to get everything done that he needed to do. So, Tom?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the invitation and opportunity to join you all today for this conversation. And I want to thank both Bobby and Ann for the important work that Webcamera and Epcamera do to address the legacy of mining in Pennsylvania. So I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania and, still reside there. So for me, honestly, it's been a real education and eye opener to me to learn more about the legacy of mining in Pennsylvania. Growing up, I definitely spent some time, playing and enjoying different forms of outdoor recreation in northeastern PA and having kind of some awareness of kind of mining legacy, but I've learned a lot, since taking on this role with PEC, and since PEC was already involved in that space. It's been one of the biggest revelations for me in this role to understand the incredible, the magnitude of the legacy and the impacts from mining in Pennsylvania, whether it's the thousands of miles of streams, impacted from acid mine drainage and the hundreds of thousands of acres of legacy mine land. So if anything, I've just recommitted PAC to continue to, be in this space and to partner with great organizations like Green Forest Work and others to figure out, how we can do our part and play a role to scale up this work, because as you all know, the needs are enormous, and the benefits of this work are enormous as well.
Yeah, that's great, Tom and Eric. Good to know where you guys are coming from, and that you've had an opportunity. I mean, Eric's obviously grew up in the region in central Pennsylvania, and Tom, you having an opportunity to kind of get out there and do some of the more recreational aspects of what you could see when you come into maybe northeastern Pennsylvania in particular. If you made it up this far, the damages are pretty extensive, but there's also been a lot of reclamation work and a lot of cleanup work that has gone on over the last few decades that I think we all can say we played a role in and had a partnership with many other organizations to continue to do this work, and PEC included. Particularly, I mean, almost every one of us on the call here with Webcamera, historically, even before Ann had come along, and when we got our start in Epcamera back in '96, it was because of a partnership with the Pennsylvania Environmental Council that we had at their Northeast office that allowed me to have an opportunity to sort of take the ball and run under Joanne Denwert's good graces to say, hey, why don't you try and run a conference up there and get folks together and form the Eastern Coalition, because it's needed in that region to funnel money back into northeastern and north central PA. And Webcamera had already been around, and they joined us that year to really bring it all together in partnership with both PEC and the at the time the Pocono Northeast Resource Conservation Development Council was a big player and supporting role to get us started, and that allowed us to kind of build on what we really started started. And, Peck in the meantime had done a lot of great stuff to start their reforestation initiative that I'm sure you'll talk about here shortly. But, with that, I think we'd like to talk a little bit more about the two organizations, because we think that they're important. There are just so many groups across Pennsylvania that I feel like I don't see it in many other states across Appalachia and just across the country. There are so many community organizations. I mean, you think we got so many levels of municipal governments. Just think about how many community groups that are out there and nonprofits and partners doing really good work when it comes to the environment. It's tremendous. And so could you kind of tell us a little bit about each of your organizations that you represent, and maybe Tom with Peck and then Eric with Green Forest Works, where your service area is and the kind of needs that you're addressing with both organizations, because Peck's been around almost like since the Rachel Carson era, and built off of things that happened early on before some of the legislation hit for the Surface Mining Control Reclamation Act. And then maybe Eric can talk a little bit more about Green Forest Works as how they've evolved and come along, probably following some of the work that initially might have been fell through under SMACRA, the Surface Mining Act, and the RE initiative and stuff. So Tom, would you like to
Sure.
On Peck?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for mentioning some of that early history in terms of, Peck's role and some of the, formative stages of this work. It's really cool to hear that, and to hear that former Peck president Joanne Denworth, who was a real force of nature, was kind of part of working with you and others on that. Peck's history is long. The organization was founded in 1970 when, a lot of really significant things were happening around, the environmental movement and environmental protection in Pennsylvania and around the nation. So organization has a long history and a track record on, many of the kind of major environmental initiatives, over the past, coming on 6 decades here, before too long, and working to protect and restore Pennsylvania's environment. We do that both through working to advance sound and bipartisan environmental and energy policies in Harrisburg, and through our programs, which focus on expanding public access to the outdoors, doing a lot of work to develop interconnected trail networks throughout the state. And we manage the statewide water trail program. So, getting people more access to the outdoors and all the benefits that provides, from public health to quality of life, to how that can really be a boon to local economies. And at the same time, we also work to restore the lands and waters that are critical, obviously, for those outdoor recreation opportunities, but also for clean air and water and diverse species of wildlife and Pennsylvania's ecosystem. So it's a pretty big, broad mission that can feel overwhelming at times. And the work on reforestation of legacy mine lands obviously fits really squarely into that mission, and has been something that Peck has had a role in and been a part of over many decades. And then the last thing I just say, one of the things that defines Peck, and this is from the beginning, the organization was founded to be a coordinating council, and that's been part of our DNA and continues to be, where we work to bring diverse partners together to develop collaborative solutions to the kind of many environmental challenges and opportunities. And we feel that that's a key ingredient for making big and lasting change, is those collaborative approaches.
Tom, how many offices are around the state now? 5 or 6, or what?
4 offices. Yep, Philly, Pittsburgh, Northeast PA, and State College area. We have about 26 staff.
Okay. All All right. Yeah. So, I mean, you cover the state, you cover the whole state. I'm sure it's broken up into sort of regional areas between your offices and, with the number of subject matter areas that you focus on, and even just legislation and the staff's support and, communications with a lot of groups like ours over the years. It's just been tremendous. They play a role in our Pennsylvania Abandoned Mine Land campaign with John and, before you, Davitt, and Laura England, when Laura was there doing the reforestation stuff, and Janet Sweeney up here in the Northeast, and all the staff here, and Tally. The ladies have been great to work with up here, and I never miss an opportunity to get together with them and Carly and Rachel. So it's great to continue to still have that relationship and be able to work with them on a number of projects and partnerships that we just overlap and share those opportunities amongst each other. And I think that's the strength of the coalition here and the strength of the council statewide to be able to do that. And it's always been the case. And so I appreciate the continued support you all play in the roles that you have in bringing funding and projects and opportunities together for all of us as a convener, and also as someone who's taken the ability to talk about legislation and things and move it forward when others don't have that capacity. So that's really, really appreciated.
Thanks,
Eric, how about you and Green Forest Works? Well, I just wanted to say I feel like a teenager in comparison. If you've been here around 60 years, we were a concept in the 90s and memorialized as a agency in 2009. So we are in the teenager years, but I think we've made a great impact. So GFW's mission, to quote our mission statement that's found on our website, is to restore healthy and productive forests on formerly mined lands in Appalachia and beyond. Our focus, is on the ecological restoration of this forest land. So we use native plants, we hire local contractors and local labor. We engage with many local organizations to do our projects, and I'll elaborate on that later, but collaboration is what gets these projects done. And like working with PEC, we've done several projects, like you mentioned, Laura and Davitt. That was who was running things when I came on board and started getting involved with it from the state level, and had a great relationship. We got a lot of acres done, and it's continued on. The collaboration that GFW and PEC has had has just been amazing. And it looks to be great going forward too. So most recently, like I said, we focus in Appalachia, but more recently, our work has taken us into different avenues, basically to any drastically disturbed land where forest has been lost, be it from mining or construction, development, or even pests. We've been working a lot with the Pennsylvania Game Commission with where pests are destroying forests, and we're helping them build some resiliency and biodiversity in those areas. And our core focus is in Appalachia, but many times there's opportunities that present to us, and we're excited to work in other areas. We've actually had boots on the ground work done in Australia in the mining area, in the mining coal fields down there. We've had Michael French, our director of operations, and I have had, we've done some online consulting, and maybe someday we'll be there. But with South Africa, they have a abandoned mine issue there that they're trying to deal with. And just most recently, we had to reach out to Argentina, some work to do in Patagonia, and I'm excited about seeing where that goes, because if that trip to Patagonia would be like perfect. So. But yeah, like I said, the whole key thing to this is, GFW just recently went through an evaluation of like where we're at, and what kind of staff do we need and stuff. And one of the things that was done during that evaluation was to interview a lot of our partners that we've worked with, the people that know about us, the agencies that we work with and stuff. And I was really impressed with some of the results that came back from that, because it was just amazing what's like some of the comments that people were saying about GFW. And it kind of shows that, as far as mine land reforestation, that we've kind of set the bar pretty high. And we like the fact that it's nice and high, and to get people to take this seriously, get the funding, get the collaboration done, and just keep moving forward, because it's definitely impacted far outside of Pennsylvania, throughout all the 7 states of Appalachia where coal's been mined. So.
How many staff do you have, or how do you coordinate those particular projects?
We're currently working with like 6 or 7 staff, and then we have our board of directors that's also involved. And they've, everybody has. We kind of regionalized. We have some staff. We have me located in Central PA, and we have some staff in Pittsburgh. We're affiliated with the University of Kentucky, so kind of a core group of our staff has come from or is located in the central to eastern Kentucky region. But we travel around. We're looking at some projects in Maryland. We've taken a couple of looks at some projects in Georgia with partnerships we've done with the National Park Service and stuff like that. So one of the things we're looking at in that expansion or scaling of the organization is where can we, what would make the most sense, where we would regionalize or where would we bring staff on. So that's something that's really a wide open scenario here. We may be ramping up some staff members here in the next couple of years to cover the need of this reforestation.
Yeah, thank you for that. Really fascinating to learn about all the different places that you're working and hope to work in the future. That would be great to go to Patagonia. But given that we, of course, are the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Chronicles, I think we'll switch gears a little bit and kind of focus in on the abandoned mine reclamation portion of this. But we would also like to maybe just give our listeners some of the basic background of what is reforestation, just so everyone listening knows, what is reforestation, why is it needed, how's it done, why is it important to abandoned mine reclamation? And I think that this question is mostly for Eric.
Yeah, throughout Appalachia, forests have been lost to mineral extraction, and there's no question about that's happened. We estimate that somewhere between 1 and 1.5 million acres have been impacted by mining. Some of that has been reclaimed, and some of it's doing very well. But there's also areas where the conditions have not allowed the trees to reestablish. So many times, trees get planted after the mining, but forests have failed to establish due to the harsh conditions that remain, whether it's compaction or competition from in non-native invasive species. So by employing the techniques that we use that were developed by OSM's area initiative and the many partner universities throughout the region, this approach is called the forestry reclamation approach, or the FRA. So I'll use those terms, area and FRA. So that's what they return from. So these conditions can be mitigated by using this technique. And that will give the best chance for these forests to recover and to develop into something that is native and functions to provide all of the ecosystem services that come from a healthy forest. The main conditions that we mitigate are the highly compacted soils, a high degree of competition. A lot of times that competition is from non-native invasive species that colonize the site and take over and prevent the forest from happening. And also improper species selection. Like I said, mine sites aren't, an easy site for getting vegetation to grow on after the mineral extraction for several different reasons. And a lot of times the switch is made to plants that grow in more of a harsh environment to have a better chance of survival. And sometimes that's good because it does, stabilize the ground. It does give you, it gets good vegetation growing, all that kind of stuff. But it also can be bad because sometimes those species are very invasive, and then they also can crowd out the native vegetation and stuff like that. And so a lot of times we have to eradicate that stuff before we get so we can get back to our native forest ecosystems that we're trying to develop. But that's in a nutshell, that's what it is. I mean, and this, like I said before, we're kind of expanding out into Jurassic disturbed lands because the same thing is happening like in highway construction, industrial park development, places that compaction is done. And then when they come in to try to get trees to grow, they have a real high failure rate. So we've actually done some consulting to reach out, and take our techniques and applying it outside the mining environment, and we've had success with that.
Yeah, that's kind of a good overview of the type of work and the approach that's taken to the plantings on a lot of these sites. And I would guess that across Pennsylvania in particular, in Western Pennsylvania in the bituminous region, there's just a lot larger land availability and tracts that could support more of this type of effort, and maybe there's not so much pressure, maybe from an economic development standpoint, that we are seeing out here in northeastern Pennsylvania along our major highway corridors that are obviously being converted to different types of mixed use industrial or warehouse, and some solar in some cases. But it just seems like the value of the land to be converted to different uses is much different than it is in central and western PA. Unless, I don't know if you're seeing that. I mean, you got Mineral Basin Project's a big solar project out there, but for the most part, there's a lot more land potentially suitable for this type of approach in Western Pennsylvania in what I've seen, and maybe what you're seeing. But so I think that's great, and that's a good sort of explanation of how that work is done. And I'm wondering how you are all, in terms of addressing those problems here in Pennsylvania. Some of the projects. I mean, do you want to talk about maybe some of those, and do you have a question in terms of leading into what they're working on?
Well, yeah, we could. Our next question, I guess, is we know that you're collaborating on establishing a mine land reforestation work group with PA universities. Would you want to tell us more about that project?
Sure. You want me to take that one, Eric?
Yeah.
So that one grew out of a reforestation summit that was last summer. That was done in partnership between PAC and Green Forest Work, ARI, and the Institute for Conservation Leadership, and the Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds. And it was a great gathering of folks from Pennsylvania and beyond, really, discussing the challenges and various aspects of mine land reforestation, from funding and policy challenges to invasive species, long-term stewardship of reforested sites. And there were some site visits as well of specific projects, including one project I would mention, which is, again, a partnership. These are all partnerships to reforest about 185 acres of legacy mine land owned by the Altoona Water Authority. And that was Green Forest Works and Earthwise Consulting and Bryn Mawr College. And the interesting thing there is that Bryn Mawr, and you might sort of wonder, so why was Bryn Mawr sort of a mainline Philadelphia institution investing in mine land reforestation in central Pennsylvania? And the answer is that so as part of, in many higher ed institutions have climate, carbon, sustainability commitments and pledges. And so Bryn Mawr saw this, investing in reforestation as something that really fit nicely into their commitments. And even so, we had a panel at the summit where we were highlighting partnerships and what kinds of partnerships are needed to scale up this work. We highlighted this partnership with Bryn Mawr in particular, and the sustainability director there, Neha Sood. She was very eloquent in making the case that even though this might seem a bit far from home for the Bryn Mawr campus, that their institution and many other institutions were powered throughout their history, right, from the extraction of coal and gas and throughout Pennsylvania, and so that they have feel some responsibility for the legacy that left. And so both in terms of meeting their kind of climate and sustainability commitments, as well as their responsibility to deal with that legacy. They were very enthusiastic about investing in this reforestation project, and in fact interested to invest in other reforestation projects. So light bulbs were going off for a number of us at that reforestation summit. And we started having conversations following that summit to say, hey, I bet there are other colleges and universities in Pennsylvania that have similar goals and similar interests, and potentially a lot of resources that they can contribute to the effort, whether that's funding, research, volunteers, education, doing educational efforts around this work. And so we hatched a plan and a proposal that we submitted to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to establish a Pennsylvania Higher Education Reforestation Initiative, which we're waiting to hear on, and hopefully will be funded. We'll know this fall. And if that's funded, then PEC and GFW, Bryn Mawr, we've got folks from Juniata College interested as well, and lots of interest already from other colleges and universities to have a focused outreach and engagement effort to bring other colleges and universities to the table to learn more about what's happening. There'll be a particular focus on the Susquehanna Basin because this is the funding source that we applied to, the NIFWF Chesapeake Small Watershed Grants Program. So initially a focus in the Susquehanna, but we then hope that it would grow beyond that and figure out how to leverage these resources and develop an implementation plan that then we could hopefully go back and secure additional NIFWF funding for implementation and leverage various resources and pots of funding to address, the priorities for reforestation that Green Forest Works has identified. And I think we're going to probably touch on that a little bit. This new, I think, really valuable database that GFW has developed.
Yeah, Eric, do you have a number or what kind of statistics are you talking about in terms of the acres of abandoned mine lands that have been reforested already in PA? Is that something you guys track or between agencies and groups?
Well, let me just share my screen here. I have a couple things pulled up that would probably help us visualize that a little bit. So give me 1 second to set that up.
Yeah, and while you're trying to show that, I'm wondering, I had a question whether or not if you're doing tree plantings on a large scale in terms of the sites that are being reclaimed, but I often wonder if stream corridor plantings of trees and wetland species are being done as well. That could be included using these different approaches that you're using on the mine lands. I think on the larger tracks that maybe the FRA is more used, but if you're along a stream corridor and you're doing plantings or a stream that's being restored to the surface, let's say, that would use and could use some riparian enhancements in terms of more wetland species and things, is that also a part of the efforts? Because I think that is something that, it's particularly in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, but like you're talking about these grants for the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, they could get counted towards the management plan goals. And I wish that was the same, and I hope it's the same for areas outside of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. But, whether it's in the Ohio or it's in the Delaware, those are things that could be considered as well when it comes to reforestation because of all the benefits. So I'd be interested in hearing more if that's a part of your work and PEC's work going forward. And if it isn't, can it be added? So, take it away and let me see what you got.
Yeah, just to go over some basic numbers here. This is from our 2025 annual report. On the right-hand side, it shows like a historical from 2009 when GFW was incorporated up till 2025. You can see how we've ramped up over the years and stuff like that. We've had some really banner years. We slacked off a little bit, and then this year it jumped up again. I'll show you those minutes in a bit. But just in 2025, we did 821,000 trees. over 1,500 acres with almost 2,000 volunteers that came out and helped plant this. On top of the volunteers, a lot of their plantings are done with professional planters, just because of the economy of scale on that, but our fresh off the press numbers for 2026, they just came out within the last day or two. We broke 1 million trees again this year, and this isn't just in Pennsylvania. This is this is GFW, as basically the 7 states of Appalachia. But we did 1 million trees on nearly 2,000 acres. We had another 502 volunteers with 1,600 hours, and we planted in 6 different states. There's 7 states in the Appalachian coalfield, and we planted in 6 of them. So we're doing some pretty good work there, and those numbers, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at ways that we can get these numbers to scale up even higher. And try to get up in, consistently stay above that 1 million trees a year that we get in the ground. So as far as your question about the streams and stuff, but stream impacts are a major component of restoring mine land. And anytime there's an impacted stream in a project area, we always look at ways that we can lessen the impact and improve the stream in several different ways. Everything from reduced sedimentation to stream bank stabilization to shading to protect the cold water resources, they come into play on these projects. You're correct on saying that, like on a large scale, the FRA doesn't really fit into the riparian area as much. Usually there's less compaction in those areas, and it's more of an invasive problem that we have to deal with. So what we do, we've developed a partnership with DCNR and the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. They have a riparian buffer program, and we partner with them anytime that we have a stream that's inside the project area or adjacent to the project area. And we work with them either for technical resources or for actually doing the work on these projects. And their knowledge and expertise in restoring these riparian buffers it's a huge, great asset to our reforestation program. Like I said, we look at the ecological restoration, the ecosystem services that we're returning. And if we would ignore the stream corridors and the special treatment that needs to be done, whether it's the different species of plants that need to take that environment, or they grow in a certain way that they provide the best habitat for the fish, for the cold water, that kind of stuff, they bring those technical resources to us. And if we didn't take that into consideration, that's a loophole that we're not looking at in the ecosystem services that these restored forests could provide. So yes, it's a part of our It's a part of our programs. It's increasingly becoming more and more as there's different funding sources available. Like I said, the DCNR and WPC have put that riparian buffer program together, headed up by Teddy Stark down in Harrisburg. They're doing great things with all different kinds of riparian buffers, and them being partners with us on these has really been an asset to us.
No, well, that's good to hear and good to know, because I know I have a separate role on the Chesapeake Bay's Stakeholders Advisory Committee, and as we've gone through and updated and revised the management plan, there's these different work groups and stuff, and some of them are on the trout and habitat, and then when we talk about riparian areas and restoration work, I think that I know I want to make sure, and I know that you all would want to make sure that those kinds of projects are getting counted, because they are potentially restoring streams to the surface. We're bringing back and reconnecting aquatic passage of trout streams and the headwaters down to lower reaches that may have gone into an abandoned mine and became mine drainage. So a lot of this work that people aren't seeing, there's a connection there between keeping water on the surface, keeping it cold, keeping it cool. The plants are doing that, let alone the carbon capture and sequestration that goes on with trees and those kind of wetland species along these tributaries that feed some of our major stream corridors. I think it's real vitally important that we capture those, because over time, I think we may have not been given credit for a lot of the work that we've done already. And if we went back and shown exactly what we've done, to add those miles of streams that have been restored and buffer corridors being added, it would show that Pennsylvania has really done its fair share of work, and building into the management plan to reach the goals of the clean water goals for the Chesapeake Bay in particular. But that's not to say it's not being done outside of the Bay watershed in the Ohio River Valley watershed, for Western Pennsylvania and the Three Rivers and or the Delaware or any other major basins in Pennsylvania. So I think it's it's a testament to all the work that you all are doing, and that's great. And I think with groups like all of ours, being able to collaborate the way we do, we can get that information into the right hands of the Bay folks in particular, so that does get counted, and we don't get it. It doesn't get forgotten, or it just may be just a number exchange to get them so that they can see that the work is done. So that's good to hear that type of work is done, because it's very much a watershed scale approach that we all are taking. We're not just doing it based on just some acreage here, and it's separate from everything else. It's a part of the landscape. It's a part of the watershed and the communities. And I think that all has to be said. And that interconnection is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Continuing on the funding kind of aspect of it and land use, we were curious if you have any sort of breakdown of what types of landowners are interested in your projects and what type of land uses those landowners have. And then also tied into that, is there incentive beyond just, of course, having beautiful trees on their property? Is there any sort of incentive for landowners to participate?
Tom, do you want to
take? Sure. I mean, a couple things. First, on terms of the incentive issue, so Pennsylvania's Clean and Green program, known as Act 319, it cuts property taxes for landowners who keep their land either in agricultural production or as open space or in forestry rather than developing it. And so essentially the way that works is that land is taxed based on its current use value instead of its fair market value, which in many parts of the state can mean dramatically lower tax bills. So in some cases, if a landowner is not already eligible for that tax relief under Act 319 by reforesting a property and committing to keep it as forests, that they could be eligible for an important tax benefit, in addition to all those other many benefits that you noted. And so there's can be some direct kind of financial gains as well. I'm not really aware of the stats. I mean, Eric's probably better to speak to kind of what he's hearing and seeing from landowners, obviously, but like everybody else, reading the news and seeing what's going on around the state, we know there's lots of competing demands for land use, whether that's data centers, big issue throughout the state right now, or warehouses or solar development. I mean, one comment I would make would be that, with respect to data centers and other forms of development, if development is going to happen, I think it is worthwhile for communities to look for mitigation opportunities that might include funding for reforestation. So if there's going to be a loss of forests tied to development that's going to happen for better or worse, right, then I think it makes sense. It might make sense in many cases for communities to look for opportunities to secure funds that can help to reforest other sites, to help offset the loss of forest tied to some of the development projects that we're seeing around the state.
Okay.
Yeah. And
do you think you have more private landowners, or is it more not private, I guess? Is it more state and federal lands, or?
We're seeing about a 50-50 mix in the type of ownership. Some days it's more to the private side. Sometimes it's more to the public side, DCNR and Game Commission and stuff like that. But like I said, overall, it's about a 50-50 mix. I mean, with the conservation agencies, they're great to work with because we know it's in the public realm. They're getting a public benefit from it, and we know that it's going to be permanently conserved because they're holding the property. Sometimes that's a little bit of a concern with the private landowner, that we go out and invest in their property, and then 5 years from now they decide to do a solar panel farm or something like that, and they wipe it out. So we do watch for that. The thing, and to kind of touch like what Tom was saying, is we're dealing with the scars of our past right now, trying to clean up what mining did. And these, the data centers and the solar farms and stuff like that, they very likely could have the same type of impact, that they could take our forests away from us. They could use them for whatever the lifespan it is. And then when they're done, they don't just naturally revert back into forest. So something's going to have to be done for them. So by being proactive and, requiring mitigation for lost forests, and, conserving land in the first place, and being, idealistic of where these these projects are going to be sited, it would make so much more sense. Let's learn from the mistakes we've made in the past that have caused us to have issues with this and have to do this reforestation in the first place. Let's not repeat what we've done before. So.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, Eric, I understand that you guys have recently published. I don't know if it's like an online integrated mapping system or a tool to kind of help identify the mineland sites that are in need of reforestation in Appalachia. I know I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but I wonder if you could tell us about the tool or give us a quick demonstration. And I think it may be a little bit different than our EPCAMR's abandoned mine land or reclaimed abandoned mine land inventory system, but maybe there's a way for it could tie into it in the future. But I'd like to know if you could give us a little bit about that.
Okay. Somehow my screen sharing just stopped, so I just restarted it. Did it return?
Yeah, there it is.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and part of we're actually working on a NIFWIF grant. We're calling it's colloquially called our scaling grant, because it's looking at basically scaling up mineland reforestation throughout Appalachia. And it's a grant that's has been provided to us by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation through their Central Apps Grant program. But we're looking at several different things. We're getting 120 acres of reforestation out of it. We're looking at GFW as a whole. We're looking at nursery capacity. We're looking at partnerships. We're looking at everything. Well, one of the things that we're developing, nobody really had a good metric to say, hey, X amount of acres could use this treatment in Pennsylvania or Ohio or West Virginia. So that we're kind of undertaking that, and myself and I have an intern, Alyssa Errico from Penn State. She's a geography major at Penn State. She's doing a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of the digitizing work. But we're getting an online mapping tool put together. Right now, I'm showing it on the screen. We have West Virginia, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania done out there. There's a little bit of cleanup work to do on them, but they're basically out there. For be able to use this tool. And I'll show you a demonstration of what it is. You can't really see it too well from this scale. But what it has enabled us, just as a quick one, those 3 states, if you take the amount of land that we've identified that is not forested but was on a mine permit at one time or another, we're now approaching 500,000 acres just in 3 states.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing to see what we're going to do. So I'm going to turn off the project areas for GFW, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit better here, and you can start to see the yellow polygons develop here. And what these are areas where Alyssa and I have gone in. We've overlaid the permit boundaries from the different state agencies, and then we've looked inside those permit boundaries to where we basically are looking at less than 25% tree cover of some sort or another, or if we could tell that it was completely autumn olive or something like that, we went ahead and included those into it. We did exclude areas where we could see active industry, active agriculture, active residential land uses, something else other than just land sitting in fallow that could use to be reforested. And the whole idea of this tool is to get it out there to the people where these projects are located visually. And then, like on this one, if you look, the purple line that comes down through here is the watershed boundary between the Ohio and the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So if a funder is looking to this, and this web app is available just by simply using a browser and clicking a link to go into it, and that link can be found on the landing page of greenforestwork.org. But they can go into it, they can click on it, and as we get time, right now we're working on getting the polygons developed, and then once they're developed, we're going to start putting attribute data to it. So like if you zoom into this area in northern Cambria County and I click on this polygon, it tells me right there is 938, almost 939 acres of land that was developed, okay, or that was identified. And I'll just turn that off quickly so you can kind of see what was left underneath it. It was an area that was very thinly forested. There was some trees on it, but it was an area that was within a mine, but we determined that, you know, it could have a reforestation opportunity exists there. So that's what this tool is. And, you know, as we roll it out, Pennsylvania is in pretty good shape because I've been working on it for a lot of years. I started this when I was working at DEP, and I just kind of brought it over, and I've been expanding upon it. Once we got this grant, I was able to go even more with it. But you can look at the different things that you can turn on here. Like if, say, the RK Melon, you have RK Melon money that you want to apply to a project. And if you turn it on, you can see their focal geography. So now you can find a project that falls inside that area. If the Game Commission was using this and they wanted to look at stuff that specifically fell inside their game lands, they would be able to turn on their game land boundaries. The state forest, you could turn it on. You could see, I'll zoom out a little bit here, but you can see where the state forests fall. You know, if you're looking for a specific stream, we have the stream layers turned on here. We have the major river basin, the Susquehanna River Basin specifically, because there's a lot of grant programs that just focus on the Susquehanna River Basin. So you can go through this, and eventually we're going to have this same type of information available for all the different states that we have out there. You know, like I said, right now, up and running on this right now is Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Kentucky. State, like I said, 1 million acres just of those 3 states. We're up to like 460 or 470,000 acres identified in those 3 states where this type of treatment could be working. So this is going to help us. It's going to help funders realize the extent of the problem, the locations of the problem. It'll help them, you know, this can be used from watershed groups to be going on and looking at their specific watershed and seeing what's available. We're hoping to get some cadastral information on here as the states allow it and the counties allow it, so that we can tell whether it's a private or a public project. You know, some funding sources want to work on one or the other, you know, and we're trying to, you know, put the tool out there, and, you know, it's going to be a dynamic tool as it goes on. And as we have different partners come to the table, they say, hey, this is my interest. We can hurry up and we can throw a geographic component to it. And they can say, okay, I'm interested in just looking at this. So we can throw up this map to them, throw a layer on it, and they're able to design from it. So it's going to be powerful. It's out there now. It's fully functioning. Like I said, off of our landing page is the best way to get to it. It's going to be developing. I have Virginia and Alabama, Virginia, Maryland, and Alabama are just about ready to come out onto the sites. I have Alyssa working in Ohio right now, and there's going to be quite a bit in Eastern Ohio in the Ohio River Basin to be able to bring out there. So that's going to be the next big one, is Ohio, that it comes out. So, but you know, like I said, we'd like to promote this tool. It's there for people to start using now. They can reach out to me if they, you know, if there's something that doesn't work right on it. Let me know. If there's something you'd like to see on it, let me know, and we can utilize this tool.
That's great. That's great.
What an incredible, that's just an amazing tool. Congratulations on all this, and I can just envision all the uses for that. That's fantastic.
And it's accessible through any web browser, and it's accessible on your phone. And when you open it on a phone, if you happen to be standing in one of our polygons and you hit the little GPS button, it'll show you where you're standing in the polygon, just using the web browser and the internet connectivity and the GPS that's in your phone. So it's a really nice functional map that you can take into the field with you.
That's great. Yeah. That's great, Eric. Hey, like before we kind of have an opportunity to see how maybe our listeners can become more involved with your work on this project, I wonder if we could take the opportunity to show the video that you all provided of some of the great work that you're doing as we, you know, get towards the tail end of the show here.
Absolutely. All right. I have to relearn how to share it again. Let's see. There we go.
This site was once a coal mine in the 1970s. For us to come back 50 plus years later and have the opportunity to plant trees to restore it to its native habitat is quite an honor, a privilege, and something I'm very excited to do.
Our work with Komatsu to date, we've planted a little over 700,000 trees. We've restored over 1,000 acres of land. It's just really a nice partnership, and it's even more special to have them actually come out and participate as a team to, get their hands dirty and be part of the solution.
This is important work that we're doing. Wood is a renewable resource. It's a sustainable industry. That wood is an important commodity to society and to industry. It's really important that we focus on that other end of the cycle, putting trees in the ground to continue reforestation, to continue that cycle for generations.
When I started at Komatsu, I learned that if it's not grown, it's mined. And doing the work what we're doing today truly displays that, essentially, of the mining and the growth together. And I think it's just such a powerful initiative that we are doing together as a team.
I'm very inspired to be here, a part of Komatsu's North America leadership team, actively engaging with Green Forest's work in this project. It's a beautiful place, and it's a great opportunity for us to come here and give back as part of the Komatsu legacy.
Great. That's a great video. Kind of captures a lot of the work that you all are doing, and it's good work that's being done. So we really appreciate it. So if you guys think that there's a way for other folks to get involved with either PEC and or Green Forest Works, maybe you could let us know, and possibly just close out the episode with maybe a word of advice that you might have for our nonprofit partners and community groups working across the state and other parts of Appalachia that you're working in. Think you guys can do that as we wrap up here?
Yeah. Tom, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, yeah, we do hope that people will get involved. I think hopefully this presentation or conversations giving people a sense of the enormous scale of need and opportunity and the benefits of this work. I think there's multiple ways people can get involved. I would encourage people to support Green Forest Work. I think it's a young organization, but man, they are delivering the goods when it comes to reforestation, leading the charge throughout the Appalachian region. So I would encourage people to do that. I would encourage people to volunteer. As Eric noted, there's lots of volunteer opportunities around the tree planting projects, and I'm sure you can find those on Green Forest's website. And other institutional partners out there, if you're not already part of this work, please get involved. Reach out to Eric, reach out to me. We're looking for colleges and universities in particular, hopefully, as we're launching this higher ed reforestation initiative. So if you're involved with a college or university or have contacts there and want to kind of point them in our direction, we're excited about the potential of that project. And I'll turn it to Eric for his closing thoughts.
Yeah, I just like to let everybody know that projects like this, sometimes they can be a little bit overwhelming when they're tackled by one entity. And we at GFW, we support collaboration. We want subject matter experts to come to the table. We want local organizations, whether it's Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, whether it's watershed groups, whoever it is. A lot of times we can provide a technical resource. We have funding ties that we can, grants that we can apply for. We can assist, projects, organizations. If they have a project in mind, we can help you get over that hump from it being overwhelming and get it to work very smooth and very efficiently. So we encourage anyone with an interest to reach out, to collaborate with GFD or anyone else, who's needed to successfully restore these important forests and their impacts in the world. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the different organizations. I mean, first and foremost, we're, PEC. We've been in relationship with them for quite a few years now, and done many projects with them. They've been a great resource. They do great things. They've got a lot of other things that they're doing for trails and through water and stuff like that. But they're a great organization to kind of partner up with, and they help us get over the hump sometimes. And we're partnered up. Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds, NIFWIF. We're working with, at times we work with industry groups like Kleinfelder Engineering. You saw the video for Komatsu. That's a great relationship. Komatsu has been a funder of a lot of projects, especially in the Monongahela National Forest where that video was shot. They've been, not only have they been a financial contribution, but they've been volunteers. They've given us technical resources. We're actually working with them on how we can do these site preparation sites more efficiently, because they have expertise in their engineering department and their equipment manufacture department. Something that, maybe doesn't work on a road job or a building job for one of their bulldozers might work different on our sites. So they've been open to those discussions, and working with groups like that. We've got the DCNR has been a huge partner with us. We just finished up a couple 100-acre project in Tioga State Forest this year that was funded by a grant through DEP, through the Tioga County Conservation Districts, through their CAP program, Countywide Action Plan. They provided about 7/8 of the funding to that project. We also had, Repsol Industries was involved with, the gas company, came to the table and provided some, assistance on it. We've had all kinds of people come to the table. And like I said, I could go on and on for the next hour or so on all the different agencies that we, the universities, the government agencies, the local watershed groups, the local volunteers that come out and plant the trees, the different agencies, and we just like to engage with them, because like I said, we never go, I can't think of a project that GFW has ever gone alone on to get some of these projects done. We always have somebody come to the table. We always have some kind of partnership. And that's what we like to, even if we're a small player in it, if it's one little thing that we can provide by, buying trees or giving them technical assistance on what type of trees they can use, those are the things that we flourish in, and those are the things we want to do. We want to see this reforestation done right. We want to see these forests return.
All right. Well, thanks again, Eric and Tom, for joining us today. We're really thankful to have you both as friends and partners and colleagues in this work we do, and to be a part of the Abandoned Mine Reclamation community here. And, we want to encourage folks to keep tuning in to the first Friday of every month at 12 noon for new episodes of Abandoned Mine Reclamation Chronicles. We're in our 12th episode. I think we're going to continue on throughout the summer here and look to apply for some continued funding to keep this going for a season 2. And hopefully some of our funding partners will be welcome to that proposal, because we just had some great people and great episodes that you can see on both our YouTube channels or go back. Well, they come off of Facebook Live after a while, so we migrate them over to our YouTube channels, and feel free to see the past 12 episodes. And I think we're going to have so many more guests lined up in the future here that can tell similar stories and similar successes, and the need for volunteers and the need for partnerships to make this kind of work in our Abandoned Mine Reclamation field here. So mark your calendars for next month. I think it's August 7th at 12 noon. Not sure who our guest is going to be yet, so Ann and I will have to determine that and talk with Andy, and so stay tuned. But that's when the next episode will be. So thank you all for being a part of our episode and show today, and we hope many people kind of go back through the chat link and lots of the links that we provided on resources and potential to get involved. So thanks again, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a quick reminder if you want to future episodes, if there's advertising sponsorship opportunities to help support our program and the show here, you can go to our store, the Epcamera store online, and pick an advertising slot. And we'll put a nice little video piece in like we did here today for Green Forest Works and PEC. So thanks, thanks again, gentlemen, and to everybody. Have a great upcoming 4th of July as we conclude the episode here today. So. See you all.
Thanks again.
See you all.
Be safe and stay cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.